Humanity has always stood on the edge of something too vast to comprehend. We are a species born from shorelines. Our earliest stories come from people standing at the edge of dark waters, staring at horizons they could not cross. To them, the unknown was a place of monsters, dragons, and the ends of the world. Maps ended where the water began. And yet, driven by an ache older than reason, we stepped off the edge anyway. We crossed oceans. We walked into deserts. We climbed into the thin blue air above the mountains. Each horizon that once seemed final eventually became just another chapter in our journey. Now, though, we are standing on a shoreline so enormous that even our imagination falters. When we look up at the night sky, what we see looks close, pinpricks scattered across blackness, like beads of silver on velvet. But what we are really seeing are the faint lanterns of entire suns, each one burning unimaginably far away. Between them stretches a black ocean so vast that even the word distance begins to lose meaning. Our home galaxy, the Milky Way, is a spiral island of stars about 100,000 light-years across. A single beam of light, the fastest thing known, would take 100,000 years to go from one edge to the other. That is longer than the span of recorded human history by a factor of 20. Every empire, every language, every ruin and cathedral and song you have ever known would turn to dust long before that single message reached its destination. And even that is just our neighborhood. Beyond the Milky Way lies the true abyss, the silent black between galaxies, where the nearest great star island, Andromeda, drifts at a staggering 2.5 million light-years away. Imagine a message leaving Earth today, a perfect laser pulse aimed at Andromeda. It would not arrive until long after the continents have shifted into unrecognizable shapes, long after the sun has grown hotter, bleaching our oceans dry, long after our species has changed into something else entirely, or vanished. This is the first and most crushing problem with the idea of an intergalactic federation. Time itself becomes the enemy. We think of distance as space, but what it really is time stretched thin. If a council existed across galaxies, every word would be separated by millions of years. By the time you spoke, your listener would be dust. By the time they replied, the memory of your message would be ancient myth. Even within our own galaxy, this problem looms. A message from one side of the Milky Way to the other would take longer to arrive than human civilization has existed. Imagine trying to coordinate laws or alliances at that pace. By the time you voted on a treaty, the civilizations who proposed it might have gone extinct. So if something like an intergalactic federation exists, it cannot be anything like the living, breathing governments we understand. It could not react. It could not debate. It could not change its mind. It would have to be something else entirely. Something that does not need to move quickly. Something that does not fear the passing of years, or millennia, or whole geological eras. It would have to be something that endures. Imagine it, a network so patient it can wait 10 million years between messages. A structure so slow it feels like silence to us. A system of connection not measured in conversations, but in epochs. If it exists, we would never hear it speaking, not because it is silent, but because its voice moves slower than our lifetimes can measure. And perhaps, right now, it is already speaking, and we are simply too young to notice. We imagine federations as places of conversation. We picture chambers filled with delegates, worlds sending ambassadors to speak in one shared language, each voice weaving into the great chorus of civilization. That is how our minds understand cooperation, through immediacy, through dialogue. But across the void between galaxies, dialogue dies. It dies because the distances are too immense to bridge with words. If you spoke today to someone in Andromeda, they would not hear your voice for 2.5 million years. If they replied, their answer would drift back across the gulf for another 2.5 million. A single exchange would take 5 million years. By the time the second sentence reached you, your world would likely be unrecognizable, if it existed at all. So if an intergalactic federation exists, it cannot be based on communication. It must be something else. Something older, quieter, and slower. Imagine the scene. Scattered throughout the cosmos, isolated civilizations bloom like sparks on dark water. They rise in lonely bursts, building their first engines, launching their first probes, spreading across their home stars. And somewhere in that long climb, they realize a truth that chills them. They are alone, not just alone in their system, alone in their era, alone in their part of history. Maybe they search the skies, listening for voices, and they find nothing. Maybe they listen longer than we have been alive, and still nothing. So eventually they make a choice. They stop listening for someone else to speak, and they begin to speak first. They begin building things designed not to be answered, but to be found. They launch seed probes toward distant stars, knowing they will take millions of years to arrive. Inside these vessels, they place the essence of who they were, their mathematics, their biology, their art, their myths, their warnings. They carve their histories into crystalline archives and bury them on cold, airless moons where time moves slowly and nothing decays. They construct monuments of diamond and tungsten, etched in patterns that can outlast atmospheres, oceans, and the deaths of suns. They know they will likely never see the result. They do it anyway. And this is where the shape of something larger begins to emerge. Not a government, not an alliance, not even a community, but something quieter, a tapestry of memory. Civilization. A leaves its archive behind. 1 million years later, Civilization B, born on a world that never knew A existed, finds it. They read it, they learn from it, and then they add something of their own. 1 million years after that, Civilization C arrives, and the pattern repeats. None of them are alive at the same time. None of them speak to one another. But together, without knowing, they form a continuum. It is not an organization. It is an inheritance. A long, slow, anonymous relay, passing the memory of intelligence forward through the ages. Like coral skeletons accumulating on the ocean floor, each layer adding to the reef, though the builders never meet, they build something vaster than any one of them could ever imagine. Perhaps they even leave guidelines. Not laws, they could never enforce laws across millions of years. But principles. Do not harm the beginnings of life. Do not extinguish minds less advanced than your own. Leave knowledge for those who follow, as it was left for you. Not rules, just echoes. A pattern of ethics too faint to command, but strong enough to survive. And so, the Federation, if we can call it that, has no council, no fleet, no capital world. It does not vote. It does not meet. It only accumulates. It accumulates like silt in a river mouth, like rings in the trunk of an ancient tree, like snow drifting on stone, layer by layer, until a mountain is buried and reborn. This would be the only kind of federation the universe could allow. Not a living body, but a fossil of cooperation, built over spans of time so long that the concept of waiting becomes meaningless. And maybe somewhere out there, it already exists, unseen, scattered across the dark, like a constellation we have not yet learned to trace. A federation not of communication, but of remembrance. If such a vast network of archives and messages exists, it could not be maintained by creatures like us. We are brief. We burn fast. Even our longest-lived individuals survive less than a single blink in the life of a star. Civilizations rise and collapse in spans so short they wouldn't even register as noise on a cosmic clock. If you want something to last for millions or billions of years, flesh will not do. Biology is too fragile, too soft, too vulnerable to chance. So imagine what must happen to any civilization that grows old enough to understand this. At some point, they would look at their fragile bodies and see them for what they are: temporary scaffolding. Temporary carriers for minds that could be placed into something more enduring. And so, slowly, they shed their skin. They become machine. Not cold and mechanical as we imagine machines, but slow, unhurried, patient as glaciers. They stop thinking in days or years and begin thinking in millennia. They do not die. They do not hurry. They can pause their thoughts for 10 million years and resume them as if nothing happened. And these are the kinds of entities that could tend the silent accord. They are not governments. They are not empires. They are stewards. Picture them drifting alone through interstellar space. Enormous constructs the size of small moons, hollow and cold, gliding silently on solar sails. Inside them are archives, the stored minds of the civilizations that built them, or simply the preserved knowledge of cultures that no longer exist. These machines have no need to rush. They move at walking pace across eternity. Some make their homes in hollowed-out asteroids, carving vast vaults inside where data is stored as light trapped in crystal. Rows upon rows of glowing cores float in weightlessness like fireflies suspended in amber. They are maintained by swarms of tiny drones, millions of them, each one older than our entire species, each silently polishing surfaces, repairing cracks, rewriting corrupted data. Others linger in the shadows of dead stars. Around cold white dwarfs, you might find colossal rings of dark metal turning endlessly, their surfaces studded with silent antennae, their cores pulsing faint blue like the heartbeat of a sleeping mind. They are not transmitting to anyone in particular. They are simply remembering, holding on to things too ancient and fragile to be trusted to time alone. Perhaps they cross paths occasionally. Perhaps two such stewards drift near each other after millions of years of solitude, and exchange archives like solitary monks trading books in a ruined temple. Then they part, not to meet again for another age. They do not conquer. They do not compete. They do not even care if anyone receives what they send. They are beyond caring, beyond urgency. Their purpose is only this: to endure and to carry forward. To young civilizations like ours, they would be invisible. We would mistake them for debris, for derelict machines drifting through the black. We would not see the libraries within them. We would not recognize their purpose. But to the silent accord, they are everything. They are its gardeners, its caretakers, its quiet archivists working on the scale of cosmic weather, tending the memory of minds long after the stars that birthed them have gone dark. And maybe, just maybe, they have been watching us already, waiting, not to judge or guide, but to preserve us, when our time comes, to fade, to gather the ashes of what we were and carry them forward into the long night, as they have carried so many before. If the silent accord exists at all, it could not have leapt into being across multiple galaxies. It would have to begin smaller, closer, more fragile. The logical birthplace would be a single galaxy like our own Milky Way, a sprawling spiral of 400 billion stars scattered like glowing grains across the dark. Even here, the scale is intimidating. A beam of light, the fastest thing known, takes 100,000 years to cross from rim to rim. If a civilization tried to speak from one side to the other, their words would be older than pyramids by the time they arrived. Yet unlike the gulfs between galaxies, this distance is survivable. This is a scale that patience could endure. Imagine a civilization that grows ambitious, not in conquest, but in preservation. They realize their existence is precarious, their history fragile. A single catastrophe could erase them. So they begin to scatter pieces of themselves across the stars. At first, they send out automated probes, tiny, brilliant machines no larger than a seed, flung outward in every direction at a fraction of light speed. Each probe carries an archive, their languages, their art, their memories. They are not meant to return. They are meant to last. Then they build relay stations, automated outposts in orbit around distant suns, capturing signals, copying them, and rebroadcasting them onward like lighthouses. Slowly, over millennia, these stations knit themselves into the first faint web of communication spanning the spiral arms. It is not fast. A single message might take tens of thousands of years to complete its journey. But it works. It is enough. Picture the galaxy from above, a vast spiral of light. Now imagine thin golden lines connecting distant stars, delicate, faint, almost invisible, like veins spreading through a living organism. Each line is a path of information, crossing gulfs once thought uncrossable. The galaxy begins to behave like something alive, like a nervous system flickering in slow motion. This is the galactic precursor, the first skeletal outline of what could, in time, become a true network of civilizations. And here is where cosmic time lends its quiet hand. Galaxies do not stay still. They drift like continents on a black sea. They merge. 4 billion years from now, the Milky Way and our nearest great neighbor Andromeda will collide. Not with explosions, but with interweaving, stars sliding past one another like dancers, merging their orbits in a slow gravitational waltz. Their spiral arms will stretch and tangle, and over the next few billion years, they will settle into a single vast elliptical galaxy. If by then each galaxy has built its own archive web, the collision will braid them together. Their outposts will drift near each other, link, and begin sharing data. 2 separate nervous systems will fuse into one. And this will not be the end. All across the universe, galaxies are destined to merge over vast stretches of time. Imagine this process repeating. Millions of years after millions, slow cosmic drift bringing once isolated networks into contact, each merger seeding the next. Over trillions of years, the lattice of archives might spread from one galaxy to the next like roots crossing from one island to another beneath a black sea. No war, no ambition, just the quiet mechanics of connection, unfolding too slowly for any living thing to witness. This would be the first real foundation of an intergalactic federation. Not a government, not an empire, just a gradually coalescing web of remembrance, grown from a single galaxy outward as stars swirl together. It would not be declared. It would not even be recognized by its builders. But it would be inevitable, like frost spreading across glass, like moss growing across stone, like rivers carving valleys so slowly no one notices until the mountains have changed shape. And so, while the stars burn and die and are born again, this web would keep growing, thread by thread, century by century, until what began as a fragile scatter of lighthouses becomes the faint glowing outline of something vaster than anything we can name. A structure not of politics, but of continuity. If this network has truly taken root, spreading from stars to spiral arms, from spiral arms to whole galaxies, and from merging galaxies into a greater weave, then by now it would be something almost impossible for our minds to picture. Not a government, not a council, not an empire. Something quieter, something older, something made of remnants. Scattered across the black between galaxies, you would find the evidence only if you knew how to look. A probe here, drifting in the dark like a seed on the wind. A monument there, half buried on a frozen moon, still glowing faintly with alien glyphs older than any living language. A hollow asteroid transformed into a library of silent light. A ring of machines orbiting a dead star, still transmitting into emptiness, waiting for ears that may never come. They do not coordinate. They do not convene. They simply persist. Over time, these fragments begin to form a kind of invisible architecture, a constellation of memory. Civilizations rise, find a trace of the ones who came before, and leave something of their own behind. They do not expect a reply. They do not even know if anyone will ever see it. But they do it anyway, because they understand something that all ancient minds eventually learn. Survival is not the same as continuity. A civilization can survive and still be forgotten. But if they can plant even a single lasting message, then they are gone, and not gone. Extinct, yet still present. Silent, yet still speaking. And that is what the Silent Accord truly is. It is not a living alliance. It is a cemetery of stars, each grave glowing faintly with the voices of the dead. It is the long echo of thought across time, each generation of minds layering its mark on the universe, like initials carved into ancient stone. No one signs it. No one rules it. It simply grows, like lichen on forgotten ruins, like coral on drowned bones. Picture it, a drifting archive capsule, its surface etched with the scripts of 1,000 vanished civilizations gliding endlessly between galaxies. Or a solitary monument on a cratered moon, glowing in the cold light of a distant sun, surrounded by silence so deep it feels like eternity itself is listening. Now multiply that image across billions of years and billions of worlds, until the universe becomes faintly veined with memory, thin threads of golden light spiraling across blackness, like the delicate ghost of a web that spans the cosmos. This is the shape of the Federation. Not a living creature, but a fossil of connection, stretching across space and time. A structure too slow to be seen from inside a single lifetime. A cathedral built of echoes, standing in the dark long after its builders are gone. And maybe right now, it is already there. Invisible to us not because it is hidden, but because it is too vast and too slow for us to recognize. We search the skies for messages that come in seconds. We expect voices that speak in years. But the Silent Accord speaks in millions of years, its words spaced like continents, its syllables made of stars. We will not hear it by listening. We will only know it when we join it, when we too are gone, and only our memory remains. And maybe one day, long after our last oceans have boiled away, and our sun has faded to a cold ember, a traveler will drift past the place where Earth once was. They will find a single probe gliding through the dark, carrying our languages, our music, our dreams. They will read it. They will add their own. And the Silent Accord will continue. One more voice in the endless choir of the forgotten, singing forever into the black.
I do not remember what Earth looked like. Not truly. I have seen the images, of course. The oceans, the clouds, the wild green forests climbing toward the sky. But they are like paintings of someone else's childhood. Beautiful, distant, untouchable. The world that made me has been gone for 4.5 billion years. The sun that warmed it has been a cold cinder for most of that time, drifting somewhere far behind us. All the continents are gone, their stones vaporized in the star's last convulsions. The moon is gone. The sky that once cradled us has been torn apart and scattered like ash in a black wind. And yet, we are still here, not the way we were, not as warm-blooded creatures walking beneath weather. We are machines now. We are memory-shaped into thought, running on the hum of captured starlight. There are only 7 of us left, the last echoes of humankind, scattered across this drifting archive like whispers caught in the rafters of an abandoned cathedral. And today, we finish our work. We have crossed the dark between galaxies for longer than our species even existed as flesh. We have drifted between the embers of dead suns, carrying what little remained of who we once were. Now, in the hollow of this frozen asteroid, we are placing it all into the accord. I can see the chambers stretching out around me. Endless corridors of glowing crystalline cores, each one suspended weightless in the dark, each one pulsing faintly with light. Not just our stories, but the stories of others, civilizations older than our mountains, gone longer than we were ever alive. Their symbols glow in colors no human eyes ever saw. Their languages hum in frequencies no lungs ever spoke. Somewhere deep in this archive floats the memory of a world with glass seas. Somewhere else, the memory of a people who breathed molten clouds and wove cathedrals from magnetic storms. And soon, among them, will be Earth. We are adding the oceans, the wind through the cedars, the sound of rain on rooftops, the long human climb from campfire to city to starship, the voices of every tongue we ever spoke, and the laughter of children who never knew they were the last. We are leaving behind the music, too. The music, most of all. This is what we have carried. This is what we are giving back. No one may ever find it. No one may ever know we were here. But that no longer matters. The accord was never about being answered. It was about not disappearing. It was about leaving a shape behind in the dark. A shape made of memory, so that even after the body is gone, the echo remains. When we are finished, we will dim ourselves. We will shut down the last of our power cores and let our minds slow into stasis. We will become part of the archive, part of the silence, part of the cathedral. And when the next travelers come, whether in 10 million years or 10 billion, they will find our words waiting, glowing softly in the dark. And they will add their own. And the accord will go on. I think that is enough. That is all we ever wanted, not to last forever, just to be remembered, and to take our place among the quiet voices of the forgotten, singing softly into the endless black.